Bhutevyas Tvad Vikrishtebhyo Mrityur Ma Bhum Mama Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Anyone else?
Yadi tasyas bhimatan varan me varadottama bhutebhyas tvad visrishtebhyo mrityur ma bhun mama prabhu.
Thank
Yadi
you.
tasyasi abhimatan paran me varadottama bhutevyastad vistrishtebhyo mrityurma pun mama prabhu.
Thank you. Yashadev Prabhu or Corey Prabhu, would you like to read the verse?
Yadi dasyasya bhimatan varanme varadotama bhutebhyas tvad vrishistebhyo mrityurma bhun mama prabhu.
Thank you. Corey left. He just left. Sorry, I shouldn't have called him out. Okay. Yadi, if dasyasi, you will give. Abhimatan, the desired. Varan, benedictions. Me, unto me. Varada Uttama, O best of all benedictors. Bhutebhya, from living entities. Tvat, by you. Visrishtebhya, who are created. Mrityu, death. Ma, not. Put, let there be. Ama, my. Prabhu, O my Lord. Translation: O my Lord, O best of the givers of benediction, if you will kindly grant me the benediction I desire, please let me not meet death from any of the living entities created by you. Purport: after being created from the navel of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, Lord Brahma, the original created living being within the universe, created many other different types of living entities to reside in this universe. Therefore, from the beginning of creation, the living entities were born of a superior living entity. Ultimately, Krishna is the supreme living being, the father of all others. Aham bija pradapita. He is the seed-giving father of all living entities. Thus far, Hiranyakashipu has adored Lord Brahma as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is expected to become immortal by the benediction of Lord Brahma. Now, however, having come to understand that even Lord Brahma is not immortal, because at the end of the millennium, Lord Brahma will also die, Hiranyakashipu is very carefully asking him for benedictions that will be almost as good as immortality. His first proposal is that he not be killed by any of the different forms of living entities created by Lord Brahma within this material world. And the translation one more time. O my Lord, O best of the givers of benediction, if you will kindly grant me the benediction I desire, please let me not meet death from any of the living entities created by you. Om Jnanatimanandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshura Unmilitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama. So, Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So as I think most classes have been repeating what's going on in this pastime, which is very nice because it really sinks in that way. But something that really stuck out for me in the classes that have been given on this chapter is how Anandini made the point in her class like 2 weeks ago, was that Hiranyakashipu is basically trying to get the best insurance policy, or all different kinds of insurance policies from Lord Brahma, that in this situation, the fine print says that I'm not going to be killed in the air. The fine print says I'm not going to be killed on the land by an animal, by a man, like that. So he's basically trying to cover all of his bases. And in the US of A, it's definitely the modes of material nature are such that insurance policies are very prevalent, and you can insure everything. Celebrities even insure their faces, their teeth, all kinds of things. So basically trying to make sure that nobody, they don't have some kind of ego death where they, lose, somebody tries to copy them, or mimic them or clone them, like that. And then similarly, that there are not all these other smaller ego deaths that's, if their house burns down, well, they'll still get the money, or if they're in a car accident or something like that. I've heard the example given so many times, like that, well, if you dent somebody's car, you're not denting them. So the example is given to see that there's a difference between the body and the soul. There's a driver within the car. But nowadays, Kali Yuga is such that people are so attached to their property and they associate so closely with the bodily concept of life that if somebody's car or home or face or anything is damaged, then it is like dying, that they are like personally injured. So anyway, so basically Hiranyakashipu is, yes, trying to take out a bunch of insurance policies from who he sees as the master insurer, which is Brahma, but actually all of Hiranyakashipu's glorifications of Brahma are misdirected. He's been calling him, as everybody who's been on the class, recently he's been offering prayers, and one has to do a double take and say, who's he talking to? He's talking to Lord Brahma, but he's saying, "O my Lord, being changelessly situated in your own abode, you expand your universal form within the cosmic manifestation, thus appearing to taste the material world. You are Brahman, the supersoul, the oldest, the personality of Godhead. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme, who in his unlimited, unmanifested form has expanded the cosmic manifestation, the form of the totality of the universe. He possesses external and internal energies, and the mixed energy called the marginal potency, which consists of all the living entities." So it's interesting because as it's going through the verses, it's like Hiranyakashipu is falsely glorifying Lord Brahma or attributing, characteristics and things to Brahma that only exist in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. But then simultaneously, and now we get to the point in today's verse that he's also having the realization that, well, Brahma is actually not immortal, so there must be someone higher than that. And he doesn't really outright acknowledge that he's had this realization as he's glorifying Brahma, but Prabhupada elaborates it on today's purport by saying that thus far Hiranyakashipu has adored Lord Brahma as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and has expected to become immortal by the benediction of Brahma. Now, however, having come to understand that even Lord Brahma is not immortal, because at the end of the millennium, Lord Brahma will also die, Hiranyakashipu is very carefully asking him for benedictions that will be almost as good as immortality. So it's interesting that his psychology, both of these things are going on, that he's on the one hand glorifying and on the other hand having the realization that, oh, actually Brahma is not immortal and the source of the whole cosmic manifestation. In a sense, yes, one could say that Brahma is, because from from the navel of Vishnu, then the lotus flower sprouts and then Lord Brahma is born, and then he's tasked with the amazing, incredible service, inconceivable service to create all living entities and in a sense create the universe, but he's just a via medium of the work of Krishna. So essentially Hiranyakashipu has been buttering Lord Brahma up for this moment and just using over flattery. So there was another point in this purport that I wanted to discuss, and that is that, well, a couple verses ago, as I just read in the purport of text 33, Prabhupada was saying that It is said that the absolute truth appears in three features, namely impersonal Brahman, localized supersoul, and ultimately the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. The cosmic manifestation is the gross material body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who enjoys the taste of material mellows by expanding his parts and parcels, the living entities who are qualitatively one with him. So this is in the verse that Hiranyakashipu has called Lord Brahma, you are Brahman, the super soul, the oldest, the personality of Godhead, which right away should signal to us, okay, he's laying it on pretty thick. And it's simply just not true. So I wanted to pull up this verse from Bhagavad Gita. I hope you can still see me. Anyway, if you can't, sorry, but I had to pull it up on my phone. So this is Bhagavad Gita 14:27, famous verse, Brahmano hi pratishtaham, amritasya vyayasya cha, shashvatasya cha dharmasya, sukhasya kantikasya cha. So this first line, Brahmano hi pratishtaham, is Krishna is expressing in Bhagavad Gita that he is the source of the impersonal Brahman, not anyone else, and also not that the impersonal Brahman is the highest thing, but actually Krishna is higher than impersonal Brahman, because as probably some of you have heard in lectures by Devanamrita Swami, that he makes this point so often, that one can manifest impersonality from personality. That, you know, you can give someone the cold shoulder, you can ignore someone, you can be impersonal, but you can only be impersonal if you're a person. You could only manifest that impersonality. So it's not the other way around, that from impersonality comes personality. It just doesn't, we don't see that happening at any point. Of course, that's the theory of the creation of the universe. I remember in like 10th grade or something, we had to watch this video from the 80s in biology class about the creation of the universe, I guess. I don't know what the movie was called, but something along those lines. And it was saying that there was a planet somewhere, and then there was a lightning strike on that planet. I don't even know if they were saying it was Earth, but anyway, a lightning strike on some planet, and then Earth, and then life was made from that, because somehow it combined two cells and manifested that. And I remember even at the time thinking, this is so ridiculous. Like that sounds like a fairy tale. It doesn't make any sense. And then as if you've listened to Kala Swarup's classes, he has described in the past, what is the probability of that even happening? That a lightning strike could, if it's even possible, what would be the probability of that? And then the probability of that happening again and in different scenarios, basically all the scenarios that would be needed for life to take place in that way. So it's just pretty nonsensical. I remember there was one girl in that class who was very Christian, and she had such a hard time with this, and she wanted to argue. And at that time, you know, everybody just made fun of her because it was like, oh, it's just some religious fanatic. But looking back on it, I'm like, yeah, actually, she had a point, that this whole thing is pretty ridiculous. It makes much more sense that there is some person behind things that is, you know, controlling, making all of these things come to life. Just like we can see with AI that, okay, well, one could say everything is looks so organized and so tidy, and everything, if you ask it a question, or even robots, very lifelike robots, like now there's robots and things that take care of old people in Japan to help with the loneliness epidemic there, things like that. So one could just think, oh, that just came about by chance, and it's just looks so orderly that there's no way because my brain can't figure out how to do that, and how to have these big data centers where all the AI is coming from, then that means that it's not possible. But because I guess humans just accept that that is, I don't hear an echo, Nagari Krishna. But if it's echoing for anybody else, then let me know. What was I saying? That because I guess it's convenient for them and is good for their sense gratification. And also they may know somebody, a person who knows a person who knows a person, and can somehow, to some small degree, wrap their head around how AI might be happening. Then we just accept it that, oh yes, of course, there's a person behind this that created this. But somehow, whenever we look at nature, look at the world, like if you spend any time in nature ever, and you just look at something like a fern or the bark on a tree or just how things are going on, then you'll see this is complete artistry and is just so magnificent that there has to be a person behind this, because there's no other case that we've seen that something so intricate and amazing has come from impersonality. It's just a pretty baseless claim. So anyway, back to the verse in Bhagavad Gita, Brahmano hi pratishtaham. So I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness. Purport: the constitution of Brahman is immortality, imperishability, eternity, and happiness. Brahman is the beginning of transcendental realization. Paramatma, the Supersoul, is the middle, the second stage in transcendental realization, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate realization of the Absolute Truth. Therefore, both Paramatma and the impersonal Brahman are within the Supreme Person. It is explained in the 7th chapter that material nature is the manifestation of the inferior energy of the Supreme Lord. The Lord impregnates the inferior material nature with fragments of the superior nature, and that is the spiritual touch in the material nature. So this is directly countering the lightning strike theory, that rather than a lightning strike that's impregnating inferior material nature with fragments of superior nature, which is life, then we're getting it straight in Bhagavad Gita here, that the Lord impregnates the inferior material nature with fragments of the superior nature, and that is the spiritual touch in the material nature. When a living entity conditioned by this material nature begins the cultivation of spiritual knowledge, he elevates himself from the position of material existence and gradually rises up to the Brahman conception of the Supreme. This attainment of the Brahman conception of life is the first stage in self-realization. At this stage, the Brahman realized person is transcendental to the material position, but he is not actually perfect in Brahman realization. If he wants, he can continue to stay in the Brahman position and then gradually rise up to the Paramatma realization and then to the realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There are many examples of this in Vedic literature. The 4 Kumaras were situated first in the impersonal Brahman conception of truth, but then they gradually rose to the platform of devotional service. One who cannot elevate himself beyond the impersonal conception of Brahman runs the risk of falling down. Okay, I might stop there because already you could give like 3 more Bhagavatam classes based on this. So one other point related actually to the pastime that we're hearing about in the earlier chapters, is it chapter 2 or chapter 1 that in the 7th canto that explains Krishna's impartiality? Oops, my video's up. That explains Krishna's impartiality. So one comes into this world, is born into certain modes of nature, that is not debated, but one has the minute independence to associate with different modes of nature, just like, Nalakuvara and Manigriva, they're demigods, but they associated with certain modes of material nature. And thus they became drunkards, and they're associating, with lower modes of nature, passion with the ladies, even in the Ganges. They're even in the Ganges, and still you can see this, the modes that they're choosing to associate with. And then we also have other examples, like we're going to see Prahlad Maharaj, Bali Maharaj, that they're born into demoniac families. And even as we're seeing, Hiranyakashipu is extremely powerful, but still he's choosing to associate with certain modes, and Bali Maharaj and Prahlad Maharaj are choosing to associate with different mode of goodness, and then ultimately Shuddhasattva. And then there's the example of Shukracharya. Well, he's a Brahmana, he's a priest, but he ultimately was trying to look out for his own sense gratification rather than encourage his disciple to surrender everything to Lord Vishnu. So impartiality, so back to that point, is that Krishna can't be said to be partial because, it might seem, well, he's helping, why is he always helping the demigods? And then, like in his incarnation of Mohini Murti, stealing things from the demons. But Krishna's not impartial. He's not partial. He says in Bhagavad Gita that however one approaches me or surrenders unto me, I reward them accordingly. So the demigods choose to cooperate with Vishnu, Krishna, and the demons do not. So Krishna can't be said to be partial. He's impartial. He's just responding to them accordingly. So that was brought up in the Bhagavad Gita, that verse that I just read, because it was saying that one can choose to associate with certain modes in order to elevate their vision from impersonal Brahman, like the four Kumaras, and then to super soul realization, and then ultimately to the personal form of Krishna. And then there was one other thing in that purport. At this stage of Brahman realization. No, I think that was everything I wanted to say. So we can see that Hiranyakashipu is choosing to associate with, of course, in one sense, he's done so many austerities and so many penances. But we also hear in Bhagavad Gita in Divisions of Faith chapter, I believe chapter 17, that there's religion practiced in the different modes of material nature. So I was just reading about how Prabhupada says that even fasting can be done in the mode of ignorance if it's for some ulterior motive, some political purpose like that. So yeah, we can see, I don't know if he's like pointing out like at Gandhi, but as you know, if you read Leelamrita, that Prabhupada was at least superficially or externally a follower of Gandhi in his youth, but then gave that up because he had met his spiritual master and started to, this is just his pastime, but then started to associate more with the devotees. Of course, he had been brought up as a devotee, but anyway, I think you get what I'm saying. So anyway, the religion can be practiced in the different modes of nature, and nowadays we see that irreligion is religion and religion is irreligion. That there's so many things going on in the name of religion that are totally condemnable, like just really horrible stuff. And even you could apply that to, there's so many things going on in the name of government that is the opposite of what government should be. For example, government is meant to, as we read in Srimad Bhagavatam, protect all living entities, even the animals, especially the cows, especially the brahmanas, especially the women, the children. Can't remember if there's another class, but I think it's in the first canto that these different first canto part 1, that it's explained these different classes of living entities that should be most protected, especially by the government. But we see the opposite of this happening in the Middle East. Well, who's being targeted? Mostly the women and children. to be honest. It's not really like, if you actually look into it or have been there, it's like pretty obvious that it's not just, let's say Israel, for example, attacking Hamas. It's specifically the women and the children, in order to get what they want. But then one could say that it happens the other way too. That's just modern warfare for you. And so the government is not protecting its citizens. And then also the brahmanas, that's not even, if you're an intellectual in today's society, you basically publish or perish and you just get bought out. The quality of the brahmana is supposed to be truthfulness, and they just take donations. They don't take a salary because, so that their truthfulness is not swayed by monetary considerations. But nowadays it's just, oh, okay, I'll skew the research for you. I'll skew the information so that you can, for example, sell this drug that might actually cause people some pretty big issues down the line. But because I'm getting paid, I will bend the truth for you. So in that way, intellectuality and Brahmanism is just, any even trace that might have been left is just completely abolished. And then also we know that the cows are certainly not protected in modern day society. It's not just that somebody is slaughtering animals, for example, for their family or maybe in their backyard or something like that. I don't know, maybe the Amish do it like that they just keep it sort of contained, but it's actually organized on a super mass scale, just mass concentration camps and slaughtering of animals, which is really just very demoniac and very horrific. So even government is not just religion, but also government is completely upside down. And what should be religion is complete irreligion nowadays. Similar, you could look at any class, to be honest. We talked about brahmanas. Now we talked about government, kshatriyas, vaishyas. Also, it's supposed to, I just read in, was it Krishna book? It's either Krishna book or Nectar of Devotion that Prabhupada's saying that the Vaishyas just that Vaishyas are like, oh, any commercial activity, and that makes you a Vaishya. It's actually dealing in natural resources and being a, very specifically, this word is a steward of the land and steward of natural resources, which is totally the opposite, once again, of what's happening today. In that it's just, how can you extract as many resources and minerals and all these things as possible, and use them for the purposes with really, I mean, no consideration. Or if there is any consideration, it does not offset the fact that the earth is being completely stripped and exploited. I was just thinking about this driving from, I think, State College to Gita, Nagari, that there was some mining things going on. And I was just thinking, and then looking at, like, for example, a package of flour or some food, that all these food substances, they're like, oh, now with added vitamins, now with added minerals. But it's because the land is being stripped of all the nutrients, the soil is being stripped of all the nutrients. That nutrients doesn't go into the food. And then they are like, wow, it's so much better because now we're putting your almond milk with the vitamins in it and all this stuff. But it's because in the first place, now they're just selling it to you a different way. Similarly with vitamins, supplements, like the big pharmaceutical companies have now bought, if you go on the shelf at Weiss or whatever, they've bought all those pharmaceutical supplements. And a lot of the companies are also tied to food production companies like Monsanto and other ones. So of course it makes sense. This is big business to strip the soil of all nutrients, exploit the earth, and then sell those nutrients back to you in addition to the food products that they're selling. So it's like double the bang for their buck as everybody gets sicker, and then people can buy more of the medicine too. And it's just, it's just irreligion. That was my point. Everything's backwards. So at best, well, I guess in Bhagavatam it also says people are born as less than Shudras nowadays. So even somebody just working to get an honest means of livelihood, and depending on the higher classes, even that is gone nowadays too. So really, there's no trace of Varnashram Dharma left, and if there is, it is just well, completely misapplied and used to exploit others. So anyway, I digress, but we can read and hear about all these things in Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada's books, and then we also get to hear about the flip side. So this world is, what's that saying? Going to hell in a handbasket. And then simultaneously, though, Krishna's pastimes are going on. And it's very nice. I encourage everyone to read Nectar of Devotion in the association of devotees or by yourself, but it's so much sweeter to read about Krishna and the association of devotees. Definitely takes off the heat of material nature, or like you have a boot, somebody stepping on your neck with a boot, and then you read Krishna's pastimes, and it's just the boot is lifted, and it's so much relief from the scorching heat of material nature. For example, just one thing I'll leave you with, and then let's see if anybody has questions or comments, is last night I was reading another devotee about like chapter 42 or something in the Nectar Devotion about the fraternal or paternal Ras in Vrindavan, about how Krishna, he is out playing with his cows, and that morning his mother's done up his tilak all nicely, and he goes out herding with his cowherd boyfriends, and he gets dust all over him. And then he's coming back home, and then Mother Yashoda is so excited to see him. She takes him on her lap, and then the milk is flowing from her breast so much that it's giving an abhishek to Krishna, because he's, dirty and, not in a material sense, but in a spiritual sense, but he's covered with dust. So she's giving him an abhishek, and Prabhupada is writing how whenever something, I didn't know this, but whenever something impure happens to the deity, I don't know what the case would be. Maybe one of our brahmanas on the call here can say, but one is supposed to wash the deity, give an abhishek with milk. And so in the same way, Mother Yashoda was giving an abhishek to Krishna with her milk, cleansing him of all the dust off of his lotus face. So yes, everything is backwards in this world now. And there's many small Hiranyakashipus, including maybe a small Hiranyakashipu in ourselves. But if we read about Krishna's pastimes, then we get relief from even our own inner Hiranyakashipu. So I'm going to stop there and see if anybody would like to enlighten us with further comments or questions or any corrections. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Haribo.
Thank you for an enlightenment class. With regards to elevation of our vision, by associating with the mode of goodness, so can you maybe tell us, just from your experience in Krishna consciousness, as we go through different life stages, through different change of circumstances of the body, yeah, just different changes, how you've been able to maintain your vision of Radha Damodar and of Gurudev uh, by associating with the mode of goodness despite the external changes in your life.
Okay, I didn't pay him to prompt me for this question. Yeah, I don't know if I'm maintaining the mode of goodness, but what can I say about that? I think it's just following the program through thick and thin is the most important thing. And there's so many more. I mean, literally everybody on this call is a more senior devotee than me. So, what can I say? My own limited realization is just to keep following the program and stick to it. And that's, yeah, shows determination in any relationship. And I think now mostly everybody, I don't know who's on as Gita Valley, but let's just say pretty much everybody on this call is married or just got married. So, also in a marriage relationship. And what I'm learning about as I enter the ashram is that you also have to stick to it through thick and thin. And we have so many examples, great examples on this call of those who have done it. I don't know how long Lila Kishori has been married, probably a long time. Tarika Prabhu, Yashodeva Nanandini. Don't know. It's Gita Valley's either Kalaswarup or maybe Parijata. So it's Parijata also probably many years. So similarly, you just stick to that relationship, and there's certain things that you do to feed into that relationship, certain things that the other person likes that will make them happy, certain ways to reciprocate with them. So also Krishna is a person, and we're getting darshan of Krishna. I just read in the fourth, what is that? Fourth canto? I think that there's this really potent sentence that Prabhupada says that we see the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the instructions of the spiritual master. So I'm just holding out hope that that will happen. I'll be able to do that. And that's pretty much my answer. I don't know if that really answers your question, but just trying to keep swimming and hold on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Maybe they also have something to say on that matter, or want to tell us how long they've been in a Krishna conscious relationship and in a relationship with Krishna.
I think I can offer a few words.
Thank you, Tarka Prabhu.
Let me gather my thoughts. The course of Krishna consciousness is not always smooth. There are ups and downs, starts and stops. Sometimes impediments are encountered. Sometimes things seem to go easily, other times with great difficulty. And so, as you say, remaining steady, sticking to the course of action, and not allowing oneself to be diverted is obviously important. Sometimes it may happen that circumstances of our life can be overwhelming. Sometimes we may come to the point of feeling utterly helpless. or that we have come to the end of our rope. We've done everything, we've tried everything, and struggling hope against hope, and to the extent that we feel as though we can barely carry on. It can happen sometimes. Our life circumstances bring us to extremes. And in the course of my life, I have experienced a lot of adversity. It's been a pretty rough ride. And trying to maintain Krishna consciousness in spite of some of the extraordinary circumstances has been challenging at times. I won't go into great detail about the specific nature of some of those difficulties, but I can tell you I've been through some incredible things, and maybe it's not like that for everybody. I maybe a little bit of an extreme case. I guess I've got some terrible karma. I have suffered extensively, and to an extent that most people can't relate to because they have no experience of such a thing. For example, as a result of a car accident, I had all kinds of severe spinal injuries, which cause pain that is unimaginable to most people. Mind-boggling pain that is unrelenting for years and years and years, unable to sleep, unable to do anything. So, trying to be Krishna conscious in the face of all kinds of extenuating circumstances is challenging sometimes. Sometimes it's just, I think I described it in another class, my experience of heart attacks that in one severe case, I was trying to be Krishna conscious. I was thinking, these could be my last moments. I want to leave my body in Krishna consciousness, but the pain of what I was going through was so severe that it was all I could think about. I was just thrashing around and crying out in agony, pounding my fist on the gurney that I was lying on, and unable to get any sort of relief. Pretty hard to think of Krishna under those circumstances. And but more recently, actually last night, I had an extraordinary experience. And this is, I think I have a point, and I'm coming to it, and it's that sometimes when our own endeavors reach the point of utter exhaustion, that there's just nothing more that we can do ourselves, then somehow or other, by Krishna's arrangement, we get help. That if we are sincere, that we get help. It's important to remember that we're not alone. That it's not that everything depends upon our own endeavor. That there is Guru and Krishna. We have the well wishes of our spiritual master. He is praying for us. He is asking Krishna to please help us. And Krishna is very kind, very merciful. He offers all kinds of help in all kinds of extraordinary ways. In recent months, and particularly most recent weeks, my health has been taking a very severe downturn, and it's been very, very hard to function as a devotee, trying to carry out my sadhana, trying to be productive. I have all kinds of responsibilities and very difficult to meet them. Just really, really struggling. You know, at times I can't move, I can't breathe. I have machines sustaining my life. It's ridiculous. Um, and I there's so much I want to do in Krishna consciousness, and there are times when it's just actually impossible. And in the past few days, I've been particularly frustrated by this and feeling especially helpless and hopeless. And then last night, um, I had a dream in which um, I was sitting in the temple room. I think I just trying to chant. I was sitting right in front of the altar on the floor, and suddenly Lord Damodar jumped into my lap. uh, and I was shocked. Uh, and I just thought that this is extraordinary. How has this happened, and why has this happened? And I picked him up. I cradled him in my arms like a baby, and I lifted him back onto the altar, just the the lower front portion of the altar. I thought I'll get some pujari and they can return Lord Damodar to his place beside Srimati Radharani. And I turned away, and I'm still on the floor, and Krishna jumps back into my lap again. And so now I'm wondering, why is this happening, and what do I do? And I turned and looked towards the rear of the temple room. I saw Kala Swarup sitting, and he's trying to chant Gayatri, and he's all distracted. His eyes are bugged out, seeing Lord Damodar in my arms. So I carried Lord Damodar to the back of the temple room to Kala Swarup, who interrupted his Gayatri, and I'm trying to understand, why has Lord Damodar done this? And he offered some explanation about some problem with his outfit that needed attention. And he took Lord Damodar from me, and similarly cradled Lord Damodar in his arms. And then I suddenly woke up, or I thought I had woken up, and I said out loud, Lord, why have you done this? And I was trying to understand, was there something bothering Lord Damodar that he wanted to bring to my attention, or what was his purpose? And I was asking, why are you doing this? And then a series of thoughts were imposed in my mind, not just arising as thoughts normally do, but it was as though almost intrusively thoughts were just pushed into my head. And The first thing was, and I understood that Lord Damodar was answering me. And the first thing that he conveyed was that he wanted to go outside. And so then my question was, well, why? What did you have in mind? And he reminded me that we used to, I was thinking perhaps this is somehow associated with Govardhan Puja, which is coming up. And he reminded me that in past decades, it had been traditional that every year we would have a procession from the temple to the barn, and we would take Sri Radha Damodar to the barn to see the cows, and there we would have an artik for them, and all the devotees would accompany them, and there would be big kirtan, and then we would feed cows while Sri Radha Damodar looked on, and then we would return with the deities in another procession to the temple. And somehow or other, that practice was discontinued at some point in time. And it had been my intention to try to revive that. And Lord Damodar was reminding me that, hey, you were going to do this. What happened? And he reminded me as well that it was also my intention to take him to see the new property, Surabi Kunj. And he said, what happened to that? They're going to go there, and he never did it. And then he reminded me of the horse buggy that I had acquired. One year we were going to have a scaled down Rath Yatra. This was during the COVID time, and so things were scaled back, and I acquired a horse buggy and worked really hard for several days to create a makeshift Rath cart for two small sets of Jagannath deities. It was really, really hard for me to do. I have all kinds of skills, but physically I'm not capable of doing the things I once did. I worked for days without sleep and in terrible, fierce pain. It was a colossal austerity, but I completed it, and there was a little Rath Yatra. So I was reminded of this cart, and I thought, oh my gosh, someone put it out in the weather. It's going to need all kinds of repair. It was so hard for me to do this last time. How am I going to do this again? And so then Lord Damodar indicated that, well, this time you should let the other devotees do the work. There are numerous other devotees. I want their service as well, not that you should do everything. And anyway, so I woke up and I started writing all of this down, which is my standard practice. I have dreams from time to time, and as soon as I wake up, I write them down so that I don't forget. There are other dreams of Lord Damodar in which he would speak to me, and his voice was mind-bogglingly charming. This the voice of a tiny child, so charming. This time he didn't speak to me like that. It was just these thoughts implanted in my consciousness. But the communication was clear. So prior to this, in recent days, I was feeling very, very incapable, struggling to try to maintain my Krishna consciousness and feeling as though I was failing. Um, I was just feeling very, very fallen and inadequate, and wondering how am I going to carry on in this condition, and very, very shocked to see the kind of extraordinary mercy that comes from Lord Damodar. Even though I am so unqualified, um, from time to time, he is just so kind and merciful. So my point is that we're not alone. We get the help of Guru, and we get the help of Krishna when we come to a point at which it becomes very difficult for us alone. Somehow or other, Krishna is aware of everything that we're going through, and he provides help. And it comes in all different kinds of ways. Well, this time it was a wonderful dream and an opportunity for service. Hare Krishna. Oh, and thank you for your class. This morning I was thinking to myself, geez, I haven't heard Dina Palika give class in a long time. It'd be really nice. I was thinking, who do I have to talk to have someone ask him to give class, and then there you were. So I'm delighted. Thank you for your class. I always enjoy hearing from you. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Thank you so much, Sharka Prabhu. That was bringing tears to my eyes. That's such a powerful, explanation, realization. It was very impactful. So thanks for sharing that personal experience with us. Does anyone else have anything they would like to share? Okay, dokes. So have a fantastic day, dear devotees, with Radha Damodar in your hearts. I hope to see everyone tomorrow at Govardhan Puja. Hare Krishna, Granth Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.